Good evening, listeners. It's such a joy to join you again for our usual Global Women Enrichment podcast. And this is the month of February. We celebrate so many things in February. I must mention that this is Heart Month and it's Go Red for Women. And we talk a lot about preventing heart disease. But most important, it's Black History Month, and we have a special guest with us. Before we talk about that, we want to tell you that in next month, in March, we will be in the Virgin Islands. We're taking our conference, Global Women Enrichment Conference, to the Virgin Islands. So if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, we encourage you to hurry and do that and come spend the weekend with us in the Virgin Islands. And go to our site, you'll see a lot more about it there. Thank you. Now, today we have the privilege of having Mr. Harold Ford join us. And he's the president of the South Dade branch of the NAACP. And some of you might wonder, what does NAACP mean? It means National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Did I get that right, sir?
That's correct.
Right. So we're going to have the privilege of having him share with us about himself, how he got involved, what he's doing in his life, and what the initiatives are of the South Dade NAACP at this time. So without further ado, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Go ahead and share with us a little bit about you. And at any time, these wonderful ladies could ask you some questions.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you. And I hope I'm invited to the Virgin Islands as well. We will see. Nonetheless, my name is Harold Ford. I'm a native of South Florida, born and raised here in Miami-Dade County. I matriculated through Pineville Elementary, Mays Junior High School, and Southridge Senior High School. I'm a graduate of the University of Florida, a degree in statistics. Don't ask me why. Because hey, I love numbers, I love math, and they're always running around in my head, and I still don't know why. But nonetheless, after University of Florida, my University of Florida experience, I came back to South Florida to basically, come back to the community in which I was born and raised in, and wanted to become active and involved. And as a result, I worked 8 years in private before I went into education. I'm a 23 plus year educator, also in the classroom, also in administrative levels. And so I've seen a lot, I've heard a lot, more importantly, it's impacted me to the point to where I see a number of deficiencies in places where help is needed. And so that kind of spurred me to get involved. I'm also a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, go Qs. And in 2001, I became a member, and as a result, automatically through an MOU and arrangement with the NAACP, we are automatically members, or we become paid members of the NAACP. So since 2001, I've been involved with the organization, but not as active back then as I am now. And so approximately 5 years ago, 2019, July, we reactivated the branch in the South Dade portion of Miami-Dade County. And so as a result of reactivation, I was immediately given the charge of being the first vice president. And Senator Dwight Bullard was actually our president at the time. And so working together with him, seeing a number of things that we need to do and that needed to be done in the community, we just continued to, again, find those fights or fires that needed to be dealt with. And we worked our way across the board trying to, again, address these issues within our community. And subsequently, we stumbled upon a number of things that needed to be dealt with. But the beautiful part about the NAACP, and I'll give you a little bit of history on that, is we delve in a number of different areas. It started out as a civil rights organization, but we also fight. We have health committees. We have an environmental and climate justice committee. We have we have 20 plus committees that you can get involved, economic development, so on and so forth. So there are a number of different committees that we do monitor what's going on and try to prevent and provide solutions to address various issues. We deal with housing, which I'm dealing with an issue now, where we have to deal with the issue of gentrification in communities. We have to deal with affordable housing not being available. And my pivot is we need to move from affordable housing to affordable home ownership. Because if we're not empowering people, then we're doing them just as big of an injustice as had already been done. So with that, we try to use our platform to, again, make sure we're bringing not just communities together, but strengthening communities in the process. So with that, I think I might want to exhale and then give you a little bit of history about the organization. But the NAACP was founded February 12th, 1909. And it was founded as a result or response to the Springfield, Illinois race riot that transpired in 1908, where four Black people were killed. And unfortunately, it was illegal back then for groups of Black people to meet in America. So they had to meet. It was 60 people that met north of the Niagara River, which, if you know, from a geographical standpoint, you're in Canada. You're not in America. So we had to meet in Canada, 60 people, seven of which were Black. And there are a number of different allies in that particular meeting that saw the need to pull together and create this organization, which is actually, I guess you could say, an offspring of the organization that W.E.B. Du Bois had created with the Niagara movement, which again dealt with the same issues. He just laid the foundation. The NAACP picked it up and carried it to the next level. So with that said, we know that even in the name, although it's been characterized as a Black organization, it clearly says in the name, we advance what? Colored people. So we're looking at everybody on the spectrum to make sure that no one is left behind at the end of the day. So when we see injustice, we come running, almost like first responders. And when it's time to make things happen, we do the best we can and promise that we're going to give 100% to the fight. So I'm going to land my plane there. So if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. But thank you all.
Well, one of the things that, and we talked about it earlier, that I think is fascinating about you, which when you landed the plane, you haven't touched on all of this, is the fact that you truly are an educator at heart. And it's almost, I feel like your calling. I don't know if you agree with that or not. And as an educator, you have not only educated in the classroom and from an administrative standpoint through the NAACP, I'm sure through the fraternity as well, and also from a spiritual standpoint. So I'd love for you to kind of share the thread through all of that in your calling.
Well, that's a cord that can't easily be broken. So, but no, I was called into ministry back in about 1990. It's when I accepted Christ and felt the urge, the unction, the need to move forward. And one thing I learned from Dr. Richardson is that before presentation, there's preparation. So before God will present us to everyone, He wants to prepare us for the work that He wants us to do. So in that work, I found it odd at that same time is when I began teaching. And I taught at an alternative ed school, which means those same children that are difficult and were kicked out of their regular schools, I now have to I have to mobilize and motivate to understand the importance of education. And I thank God for the gift that He had given me in that regard, because it allowed me the opportunity to make an impact and an imprint on those young minds who may not have been otherwise motivated to do anything and may have had, and many of them had criminal records. But when it came to that classroom, that math classroom that I taught, many of them wanted to find a way to get in Mr. Ford's class. I don't know why, because all Mr. Ford was doing was trying to teach you, but they knew that I was going to give them tough love. They knew I loved them. And one of my favorite phrases is a quote by President Theodore Roosevelt, that no one cares how much you know unless they know how much you care.
Yes.
And so that was my imprint. That was my mantra. That was what motivated me to let them know. I don't care what happens outside of this room. When you come here, I got you. And so I think they felt that, they realized that, and as a result, it helped them become more focused on their education, and many were successfully exiting our program.
That's great.
In addition to that, we had those children in our specialized unit that had those emotional behavioral problems. And when it was time to try to see if they could reacclimate to what we would consider the traditional classroom, they became my case study. They wanted to take them through my classroom first, which was cool. At first, I was like, wait a minute, why am I? But then, God touched me and said, hey, listen, if not you, who? So I thank God just, again, for those opportunities and new experiences so that, I could have the impact, and I'm grateful for it and humbled by it.
Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you for.
I'm going to ask a strange question, or maybe not so strange.
I love it.
The NAACP organization, do you guys welcome other races into the organization? If so, why? And if so, why not? If not, why not?
Well, again, we are about the advancement of colored people. And that
Okay.
was addressing those things that were transpiring to colored people.
Right.
However, we've never turned away anyone, to my recollection. Unless you're coming in to do harm to someone else.
Right.
Of course, we wouldn't support you in that particular endeavor or
Right.
agenda. However, we've never, as a matter of fact, when we first reactivated our branch, the very first client was a Hispanic gentleman near FIU that had an issue with a police brutality situation. So we didn't turn him away. I met with the state attorney's office. We had the conversation. I put it on their lap and said, listen, y'all need to really reevaluate this case because from what we've seen from the video, from the communications and everything else, this man is being had been unjustly treated
Right.
and then charged. So, it turns out that they ended up dropping the charges. But again, when it comes to representing anyone, if you come to us,
Right.
we are going to hear your case. And if we see that we can support you and give you 100%, and if we need to try to do what we can to help you get redemption
Right.
for whatever the case may be,
So
we'll do it.
do you guys have like for leadership roles, do you guys welcome other races into leadership roles? What if someone show interest in being part of it? Would you guys give them an active leadership role?
If they want it, they can get it.
Okay.
Now, we turn no one away because, again, I often say you never know who God will choose.
That's right.
And after he chooses them, you never know who God will use. So as a result, you can't turn away that whom God may have touched to come in that particular place at that particular time because you may be blocking your blessings and the blessings of others. So we don't do that. Or I don't operate that way. I'll
Right.
put it
Yeah,
that way.
yeah.
Well, it comes down to this basic human need that all of us have to be known, to be loved, to belong to something. We share that across any boundary if we stop and listen long enough. So I guess my question would be, in your experience, are you seeing advancement in all people making space and listening and learning from each other? Do you feel like we are kind of stuck? What's your experience with that?
Well, we experience ebbs and flows.
Okay.
There are going to be high points, but then there are also going to be low points. And then what I've learned is, for example, we can go back and look at the 13th Amendment. It did abolish slavery, except. And see, once you get accept, now what you've done is repackaged
Right.
what a form of enslavement might look like. And so that, although we saw it as a high, it ended up when we saw the laws and the Jim Crow laws and the black codes and all those things that transpired afterwards, we saw that, hey, all they did was repackage it so that they could imprison. And through that imprisonment, now put you back into those slave conditions, so to speak. So we do see highs and lows. Even now, when it comes to dealing with issues of, for example, the 1964 Civil Rights Act or the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Well, the Supreme Court took out some key components of that act, and what happened? Immediately, certain states began to what? Pass laws that allowed for gerrymandering, pass laws that allowed for taking away opportunities for certain segments of the population to vote. And even just recently, we just saw a case that's coming up and it's coming to fruition in Alabama where this one city hadn't had elections in, I think, like 13 years.
Wow.
That's 13 or 30. I want to say 13.
Right.
But
A lot, yeah.
I know a third was in there.
Too
But,
many.
but anyway, had not had elections for quite some time. And we know
Incredible.
that the laws require us to have elections, but
Yes.
yet and still, we think everything is going fine until we uncover on surface something that we didn't know existed. So again, our goal is to always, when we see injustice, we always run to it, try to do the best that we can to address it.
You're a part of a church.
Yes, ma'am.
How does a church mobilize for these justice causes? How do you see that happening? And how can we make more churches connect together to contribute to that just and merciful behavior that we're supposed to exemplify for Christ?
Well, I mean, the church has been really the one of the foundations and one of the pillars of the NAACP. When you go back through the civil rights movement, it was a church that organized and mobilized to help address those issues or bring them out to the public. And so, in having conversations with many of the pastors here, it takes one phone call or one text to say, listen, Pastor, we need to address this issue. We need to focus on this. When we're dealing with, so for example, issues of transportation in South Dade, we're at the point of where we're having conversations, but sooner or later we're gonna have to elevate those conversations because when we look at the Metro Rail system that we all voted for, that we all pay into, what's being floated in South Dade is what they call light rail system, which is on the ground, as opposed to an elevated system, which is everywhere else.
Right.
Is it fair to us? Because now our roads are going to be blocked. Our traffic is going to become more congested as a result of it. So when we see this, and I talk to pastors in the South Dade area about this, and they are 100% on board to say, hey, listen, no, that's not acceptable. So now, as we begin to organize and mobilize, we're going to let them, we're going to let the powers that be, the mayor, the commissioners, et cetera, know that, no, this is not acceptable. You can't treat the South Dade community like we're second-class citizens. And if we're paying into it, then we should be able to receive everything that everyone else is receiving. So, part of what we do, again, in reaching out to the pastors, I just spoke to some not long ago with respect to, again, affordable housing issues. And like I told you before, I'm about affordable home ownership because it gives you a economic base. It gives you a foundation to build generational wealth. So if we're about empowering people, we got to change from that 20th century relic of affordable housing into a 21st century model that's going to definitely benefit the community as well as the people. So yes, as far as pastors, they're on board, and we've not had one pastor tell us no.
And are those pastors from all races and
Yes.
denominations?
Races,
Awesome.
denominations, identities, everything. So we don't turn anyone away.
Awesome.
If you're coming into the fight, we welcome you into the fight.
How do we become a part of your team? Over
my goodness.
500,000 were in the nation.
All right.
But we're right here in South Dade. How do we, Global
we?
Women Enrichment, how can we contribute and be a part of the South Dade community for NAACP?
What I always say is I love your membership, but I appreciate your manpower. And so becoming a part of the South Dade branch, we have our website, southdade.naacp.org, where membership annually is $30 a year, unless you choose to be a life member, like myself. And that's $750. And it can be done one payment, it can be done in incremental payments. But the key for me is again, not just your membership, but your manpower. And so we definitely want people that want to come in and do the part or do the work, get their hands dirty, that's necessary to move the needle forward. Because again, there is a lot of work, and even the Bible says, the harvest is plentiful, but the
Laborers are few.
there you go. See, I already know what time it is.
Yeah. And I see you have a lot of committees in the South Dade area. So if you're interested in education or economics, finance, health would be my choice.
Awesome.
At large executive committee, several things. Women in the NAACP.
Yeah, our WIN committee, yes.
Environmental and climate justice.
Veterans
we have
Affairs.
a youth advisor. Yeah, so this is exciting. This is the closest I've come to such an esteemed person.
Oh my goodness. Thank you.
So it's been a joy having you here.
Pleasure.
I think you've opened our eyes to things we never think about. We
Right.
see you on TV, we hear the work you do, but to actually have you on our podcast today has been a blessing, and we appreciate that you took the time to come and be with us.
Well, I'm humbled and I'm
Very
happy.
humbly you have presented, and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
We're honored to have you with us today.
Well, thank you.
So,
And if
without
you're serious about going to the Virgin Islands, just let us know.
Join us next month.
we would love to have you go with us and actually share a little bit about
Yes.
the what you do and the work we can do with the NAACP. I'm sure our esteemed president would be honored to have you. So without further ado, we're going to bring this session to an end. Unfortunately, I wish we could go longer, but we can't. And so we thank you for joining us. We hope you have been motivated, enriched, empowered to think about, encouraged to think about what you could do in your community. If you're in the South Dade community, what you could do to not only be a member, but to give your man and woman power to the organization. So I'm going to have our dear sweet Laura take us out until such time.
We'd love to have you with us at our conference next month, so make sure you are joining us, and you can get more information on that by going to our website at gwenrichment.com. And remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you're always apprised of our podcast. Until next time, see you soon.